Hey everyone, a little bit different take for the podcast this week. What I want to talk about is ham radio, specifically about emergency communications. We just got done this past weekend, which is why this is getting posted a little late, having a emergency training testing weekend. The goal of it is to test out and to see how we do with emergency communications. And we run nets every week for people to call in and get a little experience on a net. They've gotten a little bit routine. They're kind of just check-ins and everybody say hi to each other type of things. But the goal of it is to handle things should an emergency arise. Now, as we all know, when there is an emergency, the cell phone towers can get quickly overwhelmed. The problem is, of course, that corporations are there to make money. And they don't, if the capacity of the cell phone tower and the network that they've got is sufficient for the traffic they currently have, they may put a little bit of a buffer in there, but that's it. They don't set up a network that's capable of handling every phone in a given area at the same time, trying to call to check on loved ones, not to mention emergency personnel trying to get communications through, etc. And you'll know that the original was all radio based. I'm not sure the police use as many radios as they used to. But the radio communications were the way that the dispatchers would get a hold of the police or the fire department, etc. What ham radio operators do is they have to be licensed. And just like any other profession, if your profession can help out in times of emergency, it is my personal opinion that it's your responsibility to step up when that occurs. I know a lot of people don't feel that way. I know there's a lot of people in the hobby who are more introverted and would rather listen in or do something along those lines than participate in the nets. But I think it's incumbent upon everybody, if you've got those skills, to use them in times of emergency. To that end, there are two organizations that were created. One was through the American Radio Relay League. It's called the Amateur Radio Emergency Service. The other was the government version of it, which of course has a government name, Radio Amateur Civilian Emergency Service. And both of those are designed to handle emergency communications during times of crisis. The goal is to have a network of radio operators who can pass messages around. Now, some of those messages may be critical messages. It might be something that needs to be passed from, for example, a hospital to a hospital asking for resources, or a hospital to some other emergency facility asking for some kind of assistance. But they can also be something as simple as people passing messages in and out as to how people are doing in a particular community. Right? If a community has been hit badly, one of the problems they're going to have is they may not have power. If they don't have power, they may not have ways to keep their cell phones up, charged, and things like that. And that's where a ham radio operator, who usually has some ability to keep their radio going, would get called in to pass messages on for in and out of the disaster. I believe it was Puerto Rico several years ago that the ham radio operators were credited with getting information in and out so that the people in the United States could know about their loved ones in Puerto Rico and find out how they were doing. And the people in Puerto Rico could call back out to their loved ones in the States and let them know that they were okay, or let them know what their situation was. Again, as I said, if you're a ham radio operator and you have the skill set already, then you should be using it for these purposes. Now, that means that you're probably never going to get utilized, right? That is the goal. We hope that we never have an emergency so severe that we all have to be activated. But that doesn't mean you don't need to practice. That doesn't mean that you don't have responsibilities to handle before that day. And the reason that you have those responsibilities is practice makes it routine, right? When I started doing these nets, I can't remember how long it's been now. It's been a couple of years at this point. You've got a script in front of you and you read the script and you know why things are on the script, but you just kind of read it through and handle them in a routine fashion. But after that point, you have the rote ability at that point to just go ahead and handle these communications as they come. You no longer need to rely on that script. You know what the communications are. And the more of that you can do, including handling messages, the easier it is for you to do it when an emergency occurs, right? If you're doing a net, especially if you're starting a net up, doing a net control for the first time, which is the person who directs the net, and you're doing that for the first time, and you're doing it on one of these tests or these practice runs, there's no pressure. There's no, you need to get out of the way because there's somebody else who needs to send a message out too. You're in a more relaxed environment, and it makes it a little easier to handle the communications that you're learning to do. It gives you time to learn and to grow. After you get past that point, then it's time for you to start thinking about what it would be for an emergency situation and making sure that you can handle the traffic that comes and goes from that. Now, that's also going to include being able to write down quickly or to type quickly as somebody dictates something over the radio to you. And the faster you can get and the better you can get at that, the better it's going to be overall. Now, it's funny because I don't think about it because I still have to write checks and I still write things, but was hearing from somebody like they type everything. They don't write anymore, and they don't. Their handwriting is getting to the illegible point, which I find both amusing and sad. Having grown up at a time when you were taught over and over and over and over again how to do every single letter. But here, you need to be able to take the information down, and you need to take it down in the most primitive way possible, just because you can't be guaranteed that there's going to be anything available to you. You know, if your power's out and you're running your radio and you have enough power to run a laptop or something with it, then you can type the stuff down. If you don't, you're going to be doing it by hand. That's one of the problems with some of the digital modes of communication, is that even if a digital mode is faster and can get the information, more information to the other person much easier, it requires more equipment. And the more equipment you have that require electricity, the more electricity you need to have to keep things running. It's a catch-22. Unless you've got ways of keeping your power running, like a generator, as opposed to just a battery backup system, you could run into issues with a digital mode. But again, that's the other part of it. You've got a responsibility, but in order to utilize that responsibility, you have to be able to keep your systems running. unless you're in an area that's just unaffected and can transmit in and out. The people in the impacted area have to be able to keep their stuff running. So the goal would be to make sure that you're set up for both things, right? That you can keep things running and that you can operate the nets. You may have to be net control officer, the net control station. Net control stations are a central hub. They're the traffic cop, if you will. They're going to make sure that the messages are heard, make sure that you don't have a bunch of people broadcasting all at the same time. So there's a responsibility to that that's different from just sending messages back and forth. And the best way to get used to that is to practice and practice and practice. So my goal here is to say, look, if you have a ham radio license, and I'm going to say the same thing if you have a drone pilot's license, and you have the ability and are asked, especially in the drone pilot category, to assist, I think it's incumbent upon you to assist. I think it's incumbent upon radio operators who have the skills and have the ability to utilize those skills and ability in an emergency situation. And I think that the best way to be of use during those situations is to be on the radio practicing. There's usually nets once a week. I know there are in Vermont. We have several nets on different frequencies across the week so that you can get in and practice your skills on those nets at the given times and just get used to how things happen. If you're going to go full on to either the ARES or the RACES organizations, there are training that you need to take. It's basically education to know what the policies and procedures and things are so that you know how to handle yourself. You're familiar with the types of messages that'll be sent, and you're familiar with the hierarchy of things that'll be, what the hierarchy of commands are going to be, who you're going to take responsibility from, who's the one who's going to give you your marching orders, if you will. So if you're a ham operator or know a ham operator, please take the time to go to ARRL, American Radio Relay League, check out their site, check out ARES. The ARES stuff there will also be able to kick you over to the RACES information because we like to have people dual certified. The reason for that is during an emergency, when the government comes in, you have to have RACES certification because the RACES go through a FEMA hierarchy. It's a little bit different on that side of the house. There's also some background checks and things that are there, but they will take over from the ARES people when the government comes in most cases. Because of that, if you're dual certification, that means that you can just continue on with what you're doing. There's no interruption. Because as you know, if you've got somebody new coming in, you have to bring them up to speed. You have to let them know everything that's going on. That's a time-consuming process when they could be on the radio handling the communications. So you've created a gap in emergency communications because you have to hand things off to the next person. It's, I think, a bit of an issue in that this should be one organization so that we don't have those issues. I understand why it's set up the way it is, but it would be nice if there's just one organization. But that just means that we have to be dual certified so that we can just continue on and have no disruption in emergency communications. But that's what I got for you guys this week. If you're a ham or know a ham, please go check out Emergency Communications and see if it's a right fit for you. And I'll talk to you guys all next week.